touched upon uh, how to take up your startup off the ground, and we had touched upon on what is startup engineering, and we had touched upon how what would be the situations post COVID for the startups, because, and how do you really manage the operations of your startup. So today basically we will be discussing on two things that uh, how do you really manage your human resources? Are human resources and the department itself, is it important for a startup? And how do you really manage your finances for a startup, right? So let's get started and with the first session for the day, that is on the HR. So let me start sharing my screen. Okay. Right. I hope the screen is visible. Ugandra, if you can just confirm me once.
Yeah, it's perfectly visible. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Right. So, yeah, as it is introduction, so we would be touching upon mostly on the basics of the HRM, or the human resources, and how do you really manage them? What are the strategies that you could think about to manage effectively your human resources for basically for your startup, right? Okay. I mean, I think most of you are aware that the startups in India are winding up within a span of an year, right? Not even a year, though India has been one of the hubs for startups and quite very attractive destination for investments, for maximizing your profits. But at the same time, uh, there are startups which are failing miserably within a year's time, maybe because of competition, and maybe because of more other than competition. There are several other reasons. The reasons can be, you don't really know how to handle the human resources, or you don't know how to get the work done from them, or you don't know how to retain them. A proper management of human resources is not happening. So why am I concentrating more on human resources of a startup? Yes, many organizations fail to have a defined startup itself, defined HR department itself, because they are not really aware that it's very important, or they feel HR department is not really required in an organization. So we will come to that particular point at the later stage. Though there are, several other reasons, but people, as the owners of startups, many at the early stage say no to have a HR department, as I have already discussed with you. And most of the startups don't have a dedicated HR, or a designated HR dedicatedly working for the betterment and handling of human resources in their organization, because they feel, or it is a general thinking. I myself being a MBA in HR, how people perceive about the HR and HR department. First thing they say, they are jobless, they don't have anything to do, or people feel that anything and everything of the HR operations can be handled by any. You can call it as a misconception, or you can call it as since the HR is a support function, people are not really bothered to give a prominence in an organization or importance. However, the reasons are many, but these are few things that any startup would really lag into consider a HR department to be present in an organization, or to have a dedicated HR personnel who can take care of all the functions of HR, right? And the role of a HR quite differs based upon the requirements of an organization. So accordingly, a startup definitely, yes, has to look through to have a dedicated HR. So however, in the further slides we would be discussing on why would you need a HR, what are the roles played by them, right? Okay, why do you need to set up the HR department, or you have to have a HR professional to take care of the managing of human resources? Definitely, yes. One of the greatest asset I mean, we rightly call this as human capital management these days. Gone are those days where you used to coin the function of human resources, functions of HR, and the department who used to take care of the same as human resource management department. So gone are those days. You call that as we these days we term it as human capital management, right? Where each and every HR personnel or the human resources or the employee of an organization definitely is considered as an asset, and the organization is investing on every employee and would expect certain amount of returns as a result of investment. Now, why do you need to set up a HR department, irrespective whether it is a startup or a well established company? Why do you need a HR department, right? These are a few reasons I have quoted: to accommodate changing work environment, which is dynamic very much in the current scenario; attract better talent, retention of talent, which is a greater challenge to any organization these days; complaints to industry laws, to follow uh, the government rules and regulations or compliances, right? Organization design and development is to bring in the required changes and develop your organization so that you fit into the changing environment. So these are a couple of reasons why the organization would have a dedicated HR department. However, we will try and understand what is the role of a HR. I mean, how it has been changing. The role of a HR personnel who had to take care of the department, or the responsibility of the HR department, by just watching this video that I have.
In the beginning, the role of
I hope
in the
it's audible, Ugandra.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah,
In the
perfectly.
beginning, the role
yeah.
of your HR team was largely functional. It was centered around payroll, leave, policy making, and training. Recruitment generally meant putting an ad in the paper and hoping for the best, or hiring a recruiter. Then things changed. Technology and social media happened, and as a result, your role as the head of HR began to evolve. Being just a brand name company was no longer enough. Because of social media, everyone knows what it's like to work at your company. They can see who works there, if you have cool company perks, what company culture is like, and even if your office has a slide. The employer brand was born. Now every employee is an ambassador. They're shared with a captive online audience who in turn share it with their audiences. Today, the first step of recruitment doesn't start with a job application. It starts online. The very first thing a prospective job candidate does is run a search on you, not just your company. It's also your LinkedIn profile that they are looking at. As the head of HR, you now also need to be a brand builder and a marketer. Recruitment began to change too. Technology opened up a whole new world of talent, but not just active job seekers, but hundreds upon thousands of qualified candidates who weren't actively looking. It was a game changer. You now had direct access to talent. You no longer had to wait for the right CV to cross your desk. Your employees were also increasingly becoming a valuable source of recruitment. As ambassadors for your company, they were best placed to identify the right people to join your team. But for them to do that efficiently, you needed to give them the right tools: a strong employer brand, a great company narrative, and an inspiring work environment. As the head of HR, you now also need to be a communications expert and motivator. Technology also opened up an overwhelming world of data to HR leaders. There was so much opportunity to utilize this data to improve the decision making process, make better hires, and retain talent, all at your fingertips. You just had to make sense of it all, because you now needed to be an analyst and an insights person. Today, the role of HR in an organization is no longer functional, it is transformational. As a head of HR, you are responsible for building your employer brand so that you attract the right talent. You deliver value for your company by understanding and using data driven insights to improve efficiencies. You hire the right talent by connecting with the right people. You are a brand builder, an analyst, a communicator, a motivator, and a collaborator. And as your partners at LinkedIn, we are here to provide you with just the tools and insights you need
Okay, I think that's it. I just wanted to share that with you people. The role of a HR department or the personnel of HR also is being changing day by day and year by year because yeah, the role has been changing because the environment has been changing. The kind of job profiles that's existing in the organization has been changing, and your role as a HR to connect with people and to ensure all the employees of your organization are completely engaged with their job is definitely different. So we do have many articles coming up on what would be the role of a HR by 2030 or another 10 years down the lane, or so because many of the organizations want to go virtual because of whatever reasons are, right? The pandemic is still continuing. We are not out of it. And when the roles and the setup of an organization itself is being changing, definitely, yes, the expectations or the roles and responsibilities rather, or the skill set required to be an effective HR also would change because of this changing expectations and the scenarios or the situations that we are encountering day by day, right? So now because of this, I mean, the HR earlier was just like to take care of the human resources, just keep account of the number of working hours so that the payroll can be processed or the salary can be processed and can be given to the employees. It is much more than those basic functions that the HR used to take care of earlier. Definitely, yes, these days we have witnessed that there's a growing importance seen for HR department as well. The HR department also participates in the important decisions of an organization. We also have a function called as, or a concept called as strategic human resource management, where you align the objectives and functions of human resources with that of the vision of the company, and you participate in all the strategic meetings of the organization to say whether is this really possible to support as per the expectations of the other departments to accomplish your goal. Now, here we go. That is in detail again. So, how do you really work upon to make things happen when it comes to human resources? Again, it is a long list that we got to really know. Today, we'll just touch upon the checklist for setting up a HR department for a new business or a business for or a startup for that matter to take care of its operations effectively and better utilize of your human resources. So here are these 10 points that says that following which you would be able to successfully make out the best from your human resources. You can utilize their capabilities, abilities, and make them understand what is the goal, and accordingly you can reach there. So who makes things happen to you in an organization? Definitely, yes, you as an entrepreneur, you will have several goals that you want to accomplish, your vision. What is that you got to do it? What is that you got to achieve? Your existence that tells about your mission. Why are you existing? What is that you're trying to deliver to your customers, and where do you want to reach? Right. So, who makes you to reach to the objectives that you have defined is always the human resources of the organization. You cannot alone reach the objectives. Again, depends upon the nature of the business. It might be a business, a small setup where one person can handle the functions and go ahead and achieve it well and good. If not, if it is something where you require more number of people, definitely yes, you would have to have the right number of people with the right number and the right capabilities. So right person to the right job, we always say, right? Accordingly, so you have, when there is a group of people, again there is dynamics, diversity, which has to be effectively managed. So that can only be done through the help of a dedicated department, that is HR department. So now let's understand what are these 10 tips or the checklist that you got to really consider when you have to set up a successful HR department, a strong HR department in your organization. So, hiring and onboarding systems, assigning clear goals and responsibilities, policies and procedures to set up, meeting HR compliances, strong compensation structure, positive work culture setup, managing employee performances, culture of rewards and recognition, create a documented action plan, and use of technology intervention. So let's understand one by one. Setting, hiring, and onboarding system. What is the setting, hiring, and onboarding system? The one who's been a new hiree or a new entrant in your organization got to really be helped with a great and a right orientation about your organization and about your product. What is that you got to think, what is that you got to really, what is that you're really working on? You have to clearly make them understand. So how do you make them understand? Is through a planned, structured orientation that can help them to understand about the organization processes and the products, right? Onboarding and induction are very important. As in when you hire, you could fill in the gap between the expectation and reality through this particular program. So it should not be a shock, right? Many organizations, based upon the brand image, it's human to have several expectations about the company. So the first step towards what is that? First step towards disheartenment or getting low or not feeling great about the company is about the mismatch between the reality and expectations. So if you don't do the onboarding properly or orient the employees properly, that would lead to further frustration and disappointment amongst the new entrants. So it's very important for you to make them understand how the organization operates and what are the company policies, and basically it's all about the organization and what would be the growth opportunities in the organization, so on and so forth. Everything can be covered in the orientation and induction, or there are different types and approaches to on how do you induct a new entrant in your organization. Again, it depends upon organization to organization how would they organize. And when it comes to startups, you can have a quick 1 day orientation or a half a day orientation or couple of hours of orientation, because you may not have much to share or tell about the organization because it's just started, right? You can spend quality time as an entrepreneur or a HR, in case if you really have a dedicated one, in connecting with the new joiner and put uh, a stage for open communication and try to understand the employee who will be joining you, and also the new employee who has joined you, sorry, and also put forth your expectations in terms of vision and core values of the company. It has to be strictly adhered in case if it is a core value, and the employee must should know about the vision of the organization. Hiring key elements. How do you hire a right person to your organization? Definitely is. There's a lot of background work that we do to hire a right employee, starting from recruitment to selection and placement. Three basic steps that has been carried out in any organization, for that matter. Recruitment is by letting people know that there is a vacancy. You identify the right skill set. Employee for your organization through selection, and much more to do by going ahead and inducting and training to have the right employee in your organization. So what are the key things that we got to really think about when we are hiring an employee, or when you want someone to join your company? You got to have a clear cut job description before you hire, because this is the input for any organization, for that matter. They have standardized job descriptions which can be timely reviewed and changed also as per the changing environment, right? And you got to identify the roles for which you are hiring. Okay, the person who is hiring should be aware of this, and the organization also should have a standard description of the same. And you got to identify the different sources from which you can get people from. It can be referrals or consultancies, that is vendors, whom you can put forth your requirements to and get the people on board. And interview the candidates not only on their skill set. These days, there's a lot of discussion going on behavioral aspects as well, right? People are hired based upon their personality traits and the behavior. We do have higher view as a new, I mean, application software company that has come up to help the employers in understanding the characteristics of the employee through his facial expressions. AI, that is artificial intelligence, is being utilized to assess the traits of an individual by observing the or assessing the facial expressions. When you talk about facial expressions, it's about the way you look at the monitor and your eyeball movement and the way you use your hands and your body language basically helps to explore more about an individual. So these days there's a lot of importance given on the behavioral aspects also. So when you're hiring a person, it should not be not only skill related but also their emotional quotient and personality traits, right? And you got to create a streamline the entire process by creating an offer letter and describing what are the do's and don'ts of the employment. And you got to formulate the system to manage the documents of a new employee. We do have database management system. Several softwares are available, PeopleSoft, HRIS, so on and so forth. And perform employment verification before you hire a person so that you can be sure about his background, and you're confident enough about your decision, and prepare in case any agreements are required in terms of non-competent or confidentiality and violations with respect to intellectual property right, etc., to protect the company against the violations, if any, so that you are on a safer side and employee is aware of it. These are the basic things or key things that you got to really have as standards when you're hiring the personnel to your organization. So assign clear goals and responsibilities to all the people who are joining your organization. So you got to constantly upgrade one thing uh, as alongside when the organization grows. That is to define the structure and have a pre-assigned roles and responsibilities to an employee and keep communicating to them. So before you assign, it has to be communicated, it has to be mutually accepted by both, and then assign the rules. Also, the best team not only is the one which has top skills and knowledge, and not only made of those, but the ones which has common goals and vision. The team definition itself, or we define a team itself as a group of people working towards a common goal, right? So you got to have this communication amongst the people who's responsible for what, and it is a holistic approach. You got to make them understand this. And policy and procedural setup, definitely yes. Whether it is a small or big organization, or a big or a small team, framework of policy helps you to safeguard the company against the unethical practices of an employee in the organization. So it also helps the employee to understand what is the expected behavior from the employee in an organization. So a policy is nothing but it is a written document usually that'll help you to understand the basic standards of code of conduct, right? So we can have policies for several things. Policy also helps you to define certain concepts like working hours, flexible hours, leave structure, absence, complaints, etc., grievance procedure for that matter, or conflict resolution or termination and retirement policies. A predefined policy or a framework would definitely help you to uniformly bring in all the employees with diversified cultural backgrounds and characteristics together, work together and have a holistic approach. Meet HR compliances, which is very, very important, right? So you got to understand the local procedures where you are operating. Many startup founders would not know or not really trained on the human resources management. Hence, there are several laws that's been defined by the government of every country to safeguard the rights of human resources of their, or the labor for that matter, in that particular country, right? So you got to really understand before we go ahead and set up the HR department, or we have to operate in an or as an organization independently. You got to really follow some serious government policies that has been laid by the government. So you got to check the laws of the local uh, geography where you are actually operating. That can be state wise, also central wise, that is the entire country, and the global also, in case if you're really operating globally, right? You got to know about the workplace safety, employee welfare, diversity, inclusion, contract labors, taxation, payroll, etc. What are the standard procedures, if any, to be followed, or what is the compliances that you got to really meet as an organization. In case if you're really not so great about these, you got to consult a HR or a legal expert who can help you with all the rules and regulations. Ensure you have a compliance with fair employment practices, healthy and safe workplaces. So in Indian scenario, mostly many organizations are not bothered to stick on to the rules and regulations that's been mentioned by the government because of several reasons. But it's always better to be prepared before you go ahead and legally operate your operations. Some essential policies that you got to really consider when you are setting up your business is POSH, that is prevention of sexual harassment, equal employment opportunities. It's not only caste, creed, religion, or reservations, or any other form of diversity. Companies Act, benefit, labor laws, or any other statutory compliances that you got to provide, like PF, Provident Fund, ESIC, that is Employee State Insurance Corporation, or maternity benefit for that matter. You got to be aware about all these things and follow rightly as per the defined laws in the country. Prevention against workplace injuries by ensuring safety requirements. Okay, many organizations fail to do this is because they're not really giving much importance for these safety measures, because they feel it is an costly affair, or feel that it is not needed, but not actually. You got to meet all these basic uh, compliances that is being defined by the government. Strong compensation structure. You got to have a defined compensation structure where you will have as a trump card, in case if you have a greater pay structure, people would not leave your organization. uh, they would stay with you because they have been recognized and also been paid rightly, right? So when you say compensation structure, you got to really come up with a compensation structure comparing several factors, that is what is your competitor offering in the industry, and what is the inflation rate, and what is the basic livelihood requirement, and the social security. Everything has to be considered when you talk about compensation, right? So you got to also include benefits like medical, vacation, life insurances, retirement benefits, so on and so forth. So you got to really have a great and a strong compensation structure. Positive work culture. A healthy work culture is something that would create a greater satisfaction amongst the employees. So you got to have a congenial work environment where people can grow, people are allowed to give a constructive feedback, and you have a greater mentoring system where people are guided and supported on what is that they got to do in their during their work or jobs, right? Several organizations have this exclusive mentoring systems seen at every level to hold the hand of the new entrants who come into the organization. So this would definitely create a lot of positive culture, and people would really love, or the employee morale would really be high and love to be in the organization. Managing employee performance. So this is something which is quickly we got to know and try and understand. So you got to really assess continuously the performance of an employee against the standards or on the agreed objectives between the supervisor and the employee. So you got to periodically review the performance. Usually, we again depends upon the policy of the organization. Usually, it is done quarterly, half yearly, and then uh, an aggregate of all will be given as your yearly performance. So you got to really assess the performances of an individual by having a right appraisal method in your organization that will also help to build faith amongst the employees in your company, encourage them to be in your company, work with you, and also you understand them, or they get assured that they can grow in the company and can also um, get benefited by the list of benefits that you provide for the performers in your organization. Culture of rewards and recognition is something that you got to follow as a startup when you have to manage your human resources. It's not only assigning roles, it is also something which you got to recognize them. Now, what is a culture? A culture is something that will help you to define your future success based on what values resonate among the employees, right? So they got to be sure that yes, if I'm working, I would be recognized and all my expectations will be met. So it might be monetary benefit or non-monetary benefit or whatever it is that the employee is expecting. So an organization or as a startup has to understand and build up this culture of rewards and recognition in identifying the right performers and boosting their confidence so that they can give their best, because of which the employee morale also will be increased. So use of technology intervention in human resource department. So you can have several softwares that can help you to manage the information about the HR. So we have HRIS, that is Human Resource Information System, that'll help you to streamline the major operations like leave management, attendance management, or task tracking or payroll. However, the functions can be customized as per the requirements of the organization. So this is something which will really help you or easy out your operations with respect to human resources. Again, it depends upon the organization, since the software might be a little costlier at the initial stages. Many organizations would not prefer, but the basic Excel would do most of the operations that's been mentioned over here. Okay, next thing is to create a document action plan for HR department so that you have a blueprint on what is that you got to really incorporate in the organization, and you got to also incorporate this plan with a list of HR checklist points so that the stakeholders are also aware and also are in track with you in accomplishing the functions of HR that has to be done in an organization. So you got to discuss this with the key stakeholders on how to implement the strategies, ensure people are focused on this, and you go hand in hand as per the planned actions. So you in this you can also include company practices, benefits, safety issues, general conduct, implications of misconduct, basically. So which is also, you may say it is as a policy, but yes, you can also have it as a plan of your HR department. So you will also have a structure on how do you resolve the conflicts in case if you have any, or how do you handle the situations in case of any violations. So at last, we can say that setting up a proactive company culture in this new age economy is it's not an easy task, and at the same time, a proactive HR system will help you to identify the gaps at the right time, and also helps you to resolve them. And yeah, having right workforce and building the trust amongst the workforce in your organization meticulously will help you to build up a great team that can help you to reach your dreams. Okay, this is how the basics that we can consider to actually handle, or why is it is exactly required for a HR department to go ahead and set up in an organization. I'm open for questions, if any.
Hello, Lakshmi.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
I have a question about startup and patent.
Yes.
Is it a good idea to start a company based on a patent, or do the startup and do the patent?
Patent can be definitely yes. Can be intellectual property to your organization. So I think it is better to start the company and then get it patented, because you can always say whether you can always have an opportunity to see whether it is workable and it
Mhm.
is accepted by the customers. However, patent is a patent, right? It's definitely an asset to you. So either which ways, I think it should see. But I suggest you can start the company and see how well the product is accepted, and then go for a patent. In case if you're really looking out for possibility of the success of a product, or
Okay.
in case if you feel it is really something which is innovative, which is not there till now in the market, and you would see a greater demand that would be created for yourself in the near future, it's always better to go for a patent.
Okay. And considering the HR structure,
uh,
uh, HR structure,
yeah.
like what would be the ideal staff size for HR management? Like how many? Like a manager and a assistant, or like
It depends upon the number of people that you have in your organization, the size
okay.
of the organization. We see these days organizations with a larger size, but still you don't have a HR because everything is managed virtually, right?
Mm-mm.
So, because everything is continuous, training is continuous, performance appraisal is continuous. So, training is virtual also. You no need to have a physical interaction in person. So, again, it depends upon what kind of operations does your organization has. It's completely, I believe, it's completely based upon the nature of business.
Okay. Okay.
Basically, we follow a flat structure these days, not
Mhm.
at all. However, you have hybrid also. We can be a combination. So I strongly recommend first you have to analyze what's the operations of your organization. It's not
Mhm.
that it is mandate to have a HR manager with a dedicated structure of HR department. Depends upon the nature of operations and the need. Where do you need them? What kind of support do you really require? Accordingly, we can design the HR department, ma'am.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.